welcome to another episode of the SD4L show. I'm Justin Thind. I'm here with my co-host Matt Sheehan.
That's
Matt,
right.
how are we doing on this fine March evening?
The March air is hitting the nostrils hard right now. You could tell weather's creeping up a little bit. We like to see that. Michigan State is winning basketball games. Life is great over here, Justin. How on
Basketball
earth are
game,
you over there?
singular, Matt, singular. They won one game in the last four. Anyway,
counting the women's team.
I whispered that, like, I don't think the audience heard. That was just like a sidebar between us. But
we'll edit that out. That's fine.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, we're keeping the vibes upbeat here. Come on.
Absolutely. I am doing well, Matt. You know, it would have not been the case had they lost last night.
I wouldn't be here. Point blank. I do love doing this show. I do love talking Michigan State, but that would have been a bridge too far for me to cross. That would have gotten me off the microphone forever, which I'm sure a lot of people would have been thrilled to hear that news. But no, sorry, I'm back.
If you would have told the audience that before yesterday's game, there would have been a lot of Northwestern fans like, oh, it's not a bad trade-off. Matt's not going to be over there waving his arms. It's
no.
Well, Matt, they are disappointed. Yep. So I guess I want to jump in and I want to ask you, as the game was going on, what was your confidence level like that Michigan State was going to win the game throughout? Let's describe it as like one of the win probability charts, but with your confidence level.
When they were down 8 in the first half, I got to say the vibes were horrendous over here in the Sheehan household. Probably like a lot of other State fans out there because, well, what have we seen this team do at home the last two games? Lose as 9.5-point favorites. Not great. That's what they were last night. But I got to say, you know what never, ever withered throughout the game was that defense. I mean, they held Northwestern, and sure, some of it has to do with Northwestern being pretty shorthanded. But still, Michigan State had their best defensive efficiency game in Big Ten play yesterday. So as the game's going on, you're like, well, Langborg's not scoring, not really scored in the front court. Bowie's, he's doing his damage, but we've seen him do a lot worse against Michigan State. As the game went on, it's like, if you could just even get to 55 points, I think you win this game. They didn't even have to get to that, and it was still enough to pull out the win. Now, I will say, when Northwestern had the ball down 2 with 20 seconds to go, and they got to drop a set, which was a beautiful set by Chris Collins. For a quick millisecond, the probability spiked down. But for the most part, I was oddly confident just because the defense was that strong. Now, with that said, we did say that was the best defensive efficiency game in Big Ten play for Michigan State. It was also their worst offensive efficiency game in Big Ten play for Michigan State. So, hey, it's a win worth celebrating. You celebrate every single win, especially in March, but a few layers to unpeel in that game. We could start optimistic. We could talk about the great things. Or, JT, I want to hear your thoughts. When did you realize that things might be okay for Michigan State here?
So, actually, I thought the entire game long that they were definitely going to win that game.
Okay.
I was very confident they were going to win the game. In fact, I tweeted at halftime. I said, "quote They're probably going to win this game." But
you did.
I talked about AJ Hogard and but when that game was down to the final seconds, Matt, and Northwestern was down 2, as you talked about, there was not a doubt in my mind that a Bowie 3 was going to come in and just rip the hearts of Spartans out. That's not an original thought. I think I looked at the Twitter timeline at that same time, and like 8 other people had tweeted the exact same thing.
Everyone knew it was going to happen.
Right. but like I firmly believed it with everything in me. It wasn't just like the existential dread and you're like, oh, they're going to find a way to lose this game. Like, no, I would have bet a good amount of money on that exact outcome, and didn't happen. And you and I were sitting next to each other when at the Ohio State game, and we didn't even react. I think we just stood there in silence. It's the fact that kind of game went the way it did. It was so fitting for that 3 at the end from a dude that went 1 for 8, I believe, before that in the game. And I'm like, the exact same thing is going to happen here. But before that, the entire rest of the game, I thought they were going to win. And somebody asked me, well, actually, lots of people asked me in the replies to that tweet saying they're going to win based on what? They replied to a couple people. The way that I looked at it was they have obviously not met expectations. They were preseason number 4. Season's been pretty rough. Last 3 years have been rough. Program's not at the standard that it has been for all these years, and Tom Izzo and the coaches would probably wholeheartedly agree. But the fact of the matter is, at least in my opinion, for as long as Tom Izzo is on those sidelines, the program still has a certain floor that entails a certain level of respect and pride for the name on the front of the jersey. And I think I put it in the tweet. I don't know who the two guys are going to be, but two guys in the second half are going to look down at the front of their jerseys. They're going to remember what they're playing for, and two guys are going to close it. I don't know who those two guys are going to be, but two guys are going to do it. And it ended up being Malik Hall and Tyson Walker. And I think as long as Tom Izzo's here, that there's not going to be a dip below mediocrity. I think right now, these last couple of years, you can probably refer to them as mediocrity. But I believe that's kind of where the floor is with this program, at least. And not like that everywhere, Matt. We could do a half an hour on Indiana. Could probably do an hour on Louisville. And
yeah.
Yeah.
UCLA with a nice little dip this season. Yeah, yep. It's tough in the streets, man. But I also got to give a nod to Trey Holloman, too.
Yes.
I mean, just absolutely icy on those free throws. And not like waving to the crowd and pumping them up before the free throws and then doing the ice in the veins after your first free throw. There was one more to ice the game, and he still had the gall to do that, which I got to say, free throws can be contagious. If your team starts to make a lot, you as well make a lot. Michigan State was on the opposite end of that. You see teams, not just Michigan State, but teams around the country at all levels of basketball. The free throw ain't falling. That could be contagious. Yeah. Michigan State was shooting about 60% on the day when he stepped to the line. Two of the pure swooshes you'll see the entire night. So shout out to Trey there.
For sure.
Back to Malik. Is he the winner of the Aaron Henry honorary?
Hey, Aaron Henry works too.
Aaron Henry, baby. Drag your team to the finish line award for this 2024 season.
Absolutely.
He's just doing it all, man.
Yeah, he has kind of similar to Joey Hauser in his senior year. Mm-hmm. And a couple other singular performances come to mind. Like, they didn't win that game, but Marcus Bingham and Gabe Brown against Duke in that round of 32 game. Say what you want about their whole senior seasons. Those two guys came to play that game. So like these things, they kind of stick with you. Like even in these like mediocre seasons, as we've called it, those guys that do go ahead and they step up and they play, and it doesn't matter to them how the rest of the season's gone. They're there that game. They're there that year to put it all on the line. That I think I'll remember who those guys were that did that throughout like the future years. And he absolutely embodies that. Tyson Walker, obviously, we don't know the extent of his injury. He looks fine in terms of vertical lift, but a lot of groin injuries. It's not about whether you can jump straight up and do a windmill. It's about how much separation you can get moving side to side. And I believe I was listening to the Locked On episode that you and Carter Elliott had, where I think you said that he has not shot above 40% in more than one out of the last 6 games.
Yeah.
And I fully kind of attribute that to the groin injury. So yeah, he's done what he could do, but it's been all Malik Hall the last few months as far as I'm concerned. Jaden Akins, since the first half of that Penn State game, hasn't done a ton. And Trey Holloman's done what he could at times. Center position hasn't really gotten much other than Xavier Booker in that Purdue game and that Ohio State first half. And it's been Malik Hall, man. That's been the most consistent. So it's great to see him go out that way. And 17 rebounds, that's just the thing of legends. You can't write that any different for a senior day performance at the Breslin Center.
Nothing like a career high in rebounds to close things out at Breslin Center. I do like that he acknowledged the road game at Northwestern earlier this year too, where he infamously, had 0.0 assists, 0 rebounds. He was upfront about it with Andy Katz after the game on Big Ten Network. He said that he had this game at Breslin Center against Northwestern circled because of, what he didn't do in the last one. So if you're wondering if that was weighing on his mind, verbally he said it, but he also showed it by his actions during the game too. GT, I want to zoom out right now and just not just talk about this game and what happened inside of it, but moving forward here, how much optimism does it give you? Because this is a question I've been wrestling with just in my own thoughts, like a lunatic. I've been asking myself this question throughout the day. Because on one hand, hey, a win's a win. You're off the schneid. Okay. Things are looking good. Great defense. Sensational defense, really. Actually, if you want to go further, the last 10 games Michigan State has played, they've held their opponents under their scoring average. That even includes the losses that they've had. So the defense this isn't just a one-off thing. This wasn't just because Northwestern was a little banged up. No, even against fully healthy teams in the last month and a half, the defense has been extraordinary all
Yeah.
season. Does that give you enough optimism moving forward here as we go into the regular season finale, Big Ten tournament, March Madness? Or is all the offensive downward trends giving you a little bit of a pause here?
I want to say that the fact that defense travels and defense is a more of a testament to your effort and your will than shots falling. I think that dynamic says that, hey, I'm not counting them out just yet. I do think that the thing that's holding back the optimism almost single handedly is the play of AJ Hogard.
Gotcha.
Um, I was very, very confident that he was going to go out there on senior night, and he wasn't going to have the best game of his season. I think that Illinois game where he had 23 points, the Illinois game, right, is when he had the 23, I believe.
I can go back
Yeah.
and look at that.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, like I thought like maybe his second best or third best game of the year. I thought there's no way that after the last few games he's had, this is his senior night at the Breslin. Like there's no way he's not going to come out motivated with his hair on fire. And I didn't see any like poor lapses of effort on defense or anything like that. But
No, it was
it just
strong.
wasn't
Yeah.
right. It was just not inspiring of a turnaround. Or yep, here's a senior point guard that's taken over and he's not going to go out quietly. Which is what I was expecting. So, like I said, defense travels, the effort's there, but they're not going to be able to do it just off the back of Malik Hall and a
Right.
hampered Tyson Walker. Like either Jaden Akins or AJ Hogard, Pref will be the senior point guard that has had the keys to this program for 3+ years now, is the one that steps up. But I don't know. That's going to need to change. Otherwise, they're not going to make a deep run in March. If that does change and the defense remains while they start getting more scoring output from those guys, then yeah, absolutely, the sky's the ceiling. But I don't know. We'll have to see what AJ Hogard does.
What was that Michael Jordan quote? The ceiling is the roof. Is that
Yes,
was the one
yes,
time?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there we go.
And I
Right,
believe I messed it up right there too, because I said the sky is the ceiling, but technically the sky is the limit is what the quote is. But I was thinking the sky is the ceiling also works because what you're saying is the sky, which is
right.
kind of infinite, right? Because
Yeah.
it would continue until like the space.
There is no ceiling, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So technically I'm kind of saying the same thing, but that's not the mainstream quote. But it is.
You just made it more like artful. You made people just really get deep into it, which I like. You edit this out too. And
yes,
you
this commentary.
Stick to what you said originally.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
You can take positives from the defense, specifically where the defense is coming from. It's coming from that wing, the guards, okay, and at times too the center position. Like the front court isn't a total dud defensively, and that plays well in March. All right, but also like something does scare me, make me a little nervous about the fact that I don't know if going into not Final Four, going into March Madness with the Virginia strategy of, hey, you have to hold every team below 50 to win this game is a long-term way of success. And yes, Virginia won the national title that one time. That was fun, but they've also had some struggles in March, just relying solely on their defense. And I know that they play different style defense in Michigan State, but point stands, offense is good to have in March, JT. I know I'm really breaking brains out there. We're really getting analytical right now. And with the trends that we're seeing from a few players, just like you said, the Tyson Walker thing, that he's only shot 40% once in the last 6 games. Jaden Akins, since halftime of the Penn State game, just 4 of 22 from 3. And I got to say, I'd be lying if I said that it didn't seem mental at this point, because look, a 3-point gunner especially, that could be a very mental thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can snap out of that in a little bit. AJ, hopefully he can give you some offense here. But yeah, it's been a few games now where you're starting to wonder about this offense moving forward here. But
yeah. I think with those two guys, I think you'd still prefer it to be mental more so than physical, because there's not really any overcoming the physical. So that's why I'll always kind of continue to hold out hope, probably until the last game of the season. Like if they're still slumping after like this game against Indiana, let's say they're losing the first round of the Big Ten tournament, and I'm still probably going to be holding out hope that Akins is going to go out there and maybe go 4 for 7 from 3 the next time that he's out there, just because when it is mental, all you need to do is maybe see your first couple shots go in and it can erase the last month or so of streaky shooting. But like eventually it's going to have to happen. They're kind of running out of time here. And, like I kind of was talking about this on Twitter, the loss of Jeremy Fears, I don't know what his box score would have been an average of like the last few weeks, but I firmly believe that his presence alone even if, let's say, he doesn't take the starting job officially from Hogard, I
Yeah.
think just him being there and continuing to not hold him accountable directly, but just his presence forcing him to play up to standard would have been much better for AJ Hogard. And hey, if he still wouldn't have answered the bell, I think Fears could have just taken that spot from him, and that's not an option now. So he's got to turn that around. At least Trey Holloman there, he's kind of started to help with some of the off ball kind of catch and shoot situations that Akins is not helping with for the time being. But Hogard's it at point guard. He's just got to get it. He's got to get it together.
How nice would it be for Jaden Akins to break out of his shooting slump at the school that some people on Twitter wanted to tamper with in accordance with Jaden Akins? That'd be nice. I would like to see him come out of that slump here at Assembly Hall, which will be no easy task. And I get it. Indiana, kind of a slouch of a season. But hey, at least the recruiting's going well as far as I'm concerned. I haven't been online all day. But still, going to be a tough venue.
Yes.
Tough team. Hot teams, 3 wins in a row. Look at them. Look at them getting hot at the right time.
If there's one thing I will not take for granted, Matt, it is 3 wins in a row.
You got that right. Yeah, no kidding about that. Just to put a bow on this whole topic, talk about Wednesday. Of all the seniors that kissed the Spartan, no shortage of good stories there. Which one storyline of the seniors sticks out to you amongst the rest, do you think?
For me, it's the Steven Izzo story. I know like the Malik Hall story of what he's overcome with his dad's dementia and all of that is like almost impossible to put into words, like how powerful that is. But I think that's been like more well documented, and he's gotten his flowers for the mental toughness him and his family have shown. The Steven Izzo story, not even just the actual article that Brendan Quinn from The Athletic wrote recently talking about the adoption, not just that angle of it. I more so mean the fact that what it means about the program and the longevity that Coach Izzo has had, that his own son, who he wasn't even part of the family when Coach Izzo won the national title at Michigan State, he has gone ahead and had a career long enough where his son could attend the university, play on the basketball team for 5 years, kiss that logo, and he is still here, and he's still going to be here for a few more years. So just what that says about the program in terms of the longevity and the sustained success, but also the way that the program is ran. It is all about family. And, it's it's not a secret to anybody that maybe Steven Izzo, from a basketball production standpoint, probably wouldn't have been a walk-on in normal situations if he wasn't Tom Izzo's kid. And not a single player on that team, who pretty much all the rest of them, at least all the scholarship guys, earned their way onto the team. Not a single one of them cared about that. Not a single one of them made an issue about that. Every single time he even gets the ball, every person on that sideline stands up and cheers for him. The way that he was treated here, at least from afar, from it seems, and based on everything that I've heard behind the scenes from when people talk about him, he is the microcosm of what makes Michigan State different than pretty much every single program in the country. And it's great to see that. And hopefully he comes back as a manager a GA or something like that. But that to me is the testament of the Tom Izzo program in sort of one example.
But my favorite moment of Steven Izzo's senior night, and this isn't even going to make sense, is actually something that happened 2 months ago with him scoring. Because him getting to senior night, if he had no points, like there would be a little bit of a bummer in the air. Like, don't get me wrong, the big story would still be just how beautiful of a moment this is and what it means for the program. But you need that clip of him scoring somewhere in that highlight reel. And my God, he got it with an and one, and drained the free throw, of course, in clutch fashion. So what a weight off his shoulders. He actually said that in a story. I don't know if it was the Brendan Quinn piece, but he did say that to some media outlet that, like, good thing he did score, because, like, there's no more monkey on his back. But Steven Izzo was great too. But I got to just give a nod here to Mady Sissoko. We all know his story. Playing thousands of miles from home, has barely, if at all, seen any family in the United States. His brother Solomon traveling. Do you know how long of a drive it is from Mady's village to the capital of Mali?
Is it 8 hours, Matt?
It's 8.5 hours, and that's with no traffic. Did you know that Mali is the size of 2 Texases put together? Like, I had No clue. It's that big. So after that 8.5 hour drive,
Right.
I tried to look up flights. I imagine he flew from the capital of Mali to
Right.
DTW, Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
The shortest flight I could find is 29 hours of travel.
Mm.
The average was around 32 hours of travel with at least 2, if not 3 connections. So however he got here, we're talking 8.5 hour car ride, then 29 hours of air travel, 18 of that being in the air. JT, how far would you travel to see your team win a game? Because I was thinking, like, if Michigan State played an Elite Eight game in Taiwan or something like that, and they were guaranteed to win if I show up and do this strenuous travel, where like I got to drive to Nashville in order to catch this flight, would I do it? I think I would. That
Yeah, I
is
mean,
insane traveling from Marty's brother.
they have some good chicken in Nashville, so I
Yeah,
go with you.
if not for nothing else, right? There it is.
No, that's a great story, and I believe you were also saying on Locked On Spartans that
Yeah.
his brother's now also going to be touring across the
Right.
country. He's going to be going to New York City, I think, just to
Yes.
visit, but then also was visiting Marty's host family out in Provo. So
Don't
man's
forget the
traveling.
Big Ten tournament either. He's going
Yes.
from East Lansing to New York City, back to East Lansing, Minneapolis, and then Utah. My God, this guy's going to have enough air miles to,
Yep.
fly to Saturn by the end of all this.
Yep.
That is an unbelievable,
He's seeing
gritty itinerary.
he's seeing the four wonders of the United States: East
Yes.
Lansing, New York City, Provo, Utah, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. So
You know what
doesn't
they
get better
say?
than
Yep,
that.
that's right. The Mecca of the United States, the Mall of America. Like, what more do you want to show this guy? That's
Absolutely.
perfect.
Yeah.
What a memorable experience for him. I just cannot believe how much
Yeah.
travel this guy is doing. So what a brother. My God, I love
Yeah.
my brother, but you want me to travel how long to hang out with you for a week? No, I'm sorry. Thanks for the offer though. So good on him.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Just another sign of kind of the family that this program has kind of built.
Yeah.
The family kind of culture, because when Madi doesn't get to see his actual family for so long, the only way you stay for 4 years is because kind of your new family, which is the program, has made you feel at home and comfortable with them. So everywhere you look in this senior class, it just seems like there's so many signs of the fact that there's a culture here that Coach Izzo doesn't want to let go of. And that kind of speaks to his points with the portal, and that's a different conversation. We can dive into that as well, but I think there's a lot of merit to a lot of points that he makes, and Senior Day kind of shows that.
No doubt. So with Senior Day coming to an end,
Mm-hmm.
can we talk about the next chapter right now? Do you want to get into your recruiting notebook right now, JT?
Yes, we can do that. And this was posted a couple weeks ago on the Shaw Lane VIP board. Just going to run through these notes here in rapid fire fashion. So basically had a few conversations, dug around, poked around, saw where things stood with various kind of 2024 and 2025 recruiting races. First off, I'll talk about the one and only ongoing 2024 pursuit. That is Bryson Tucker. I had kind of told people on the Shaw Lane VIP board a couple months ago, I want to say like maybe 2 months ago exactly, that he's probably leaning towards playing pro ball. That probably remains the case, but he has not told Kansas or Michigan State that that's a final decision, and both schools are still pursuing. So not dead there, but also no reason to have real hope other than the fact that he's not actually pulling that pro ball trigger, despite having leaning that way for a while. So we'll see what happens there. But I do anticipate that if Bryson Tucker comes to Michigan State, then they're probably not going to take a transfer at that kind of perimeter wing spot. But if he doesn't come to Michigan State, then I do think that there's a very high chance that they go ahead, kind of get that hybrid swing forward, the guy that can play the 3 or the 4. But then you also have to see kind of maybe like what Akins does. And I don't really know where he would go, but he also tested the draft waters last year, and he thought he was probably better than he actually is. So we'll see how that plays out. But obviously then you have Xavier Booker at the 4 or the 5 next year. So they have to decide where they kind of see him. And then, those moving pieces as well. So we'll see what they do there with the portal, but that's kind of where I heard is there's one of the opportunities. The other would be at center, but you also have to see kind of what happens there. Like, does Jackson Kohler come back again for another year? Carson Cooper, I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. Madi's probably not going to be back. And as you kind of heard coaches talk about it in the last week's presser, that none of the seniors have told him that they plan to be back. So as far as he's concerned, all the seniors are seniors.
Yeah.
But Marty did say, and I read this in Stephen Brooks's piece after the huddle, that Marty does plan. He said, yes, definitely. I'm not done yet in terms of his college career. So I'm guessing what that is implying is that he's probably going to go ahead and use that COVID waiver elsewhere.
Okay.
Or the portal, but that's just me reading between the lines of everything that's said there. That's not actual intel. Continuing down this recruiting notebook, Nico Bundalo, the sharpshooter slash point forward out in Illinois. Michigan State's been all over him. I know Doug Wojcik has been recruiting him and built a nice relationship with his family for quite some time now. Michigan State, they're probably the leader right now. I wouldn't say they're enough of a leader for me to put in a crystal ball and tell people on the Shaw Lane VIP board that they can start celebrating. But I think tangibly now I'm ready to say that Michigan State is probably first in that race. Whereas for a while, it didn't seem like there were any leaders. Again, long way to go. No such timeline is kind of prevalent right now in terms of what he's going to do timing wise, but we'll see. Jordan Scott, he is a top 65 forward in the 2025 class. He's from Virginia. Maryland is pursuing. Virginia Tech is pursuing. I think he is somebody that Michigan State can land if they push very, very hard. And he's somebody that they do want. It's just they're not in a rush to go ahead and get kids to commit right away. The more time they get to evaluate kids, the better for them as well. So it's not that he's not a take, but I think they can get him when they go with the full court press, and they just haven't done that yet. Speaking of forwards in the 2025 class, another kid out east, another Maryland kid from Upper Marlboro, Maryland, is Cam Ward. He's a kid that they just kind of recently got into in the last month or so. He is very good. He is more of a refined scorer than Jordan Scott is, but he's not as lengthy. I think Cam Ward would probably be a guy that could go to the NBA quicker, but Jordan Scott would be the guy that's there for 3-4 years, and he's the program kind of guy. And they'll take both if the numbers work out, but I just wanted to put them against each other just because they're kind of those perimeter forwards in that mold. Yeah. So just wanted to put in context to each other. And they had a lot of La Lumiere kids here for that Ohio State game that obviously ended unfortunately, but when kids come for visits, they care about relationships. They care about kind of the atmosphere. They don't necessarily care about which team had 1 or 2 more points, 3 more points than the other. So with that, I think Jerry Easter, obviously, Darius Adams, everyone knows. Those two were the 2025 guys that were there. And they're continuing to just going ahead and chipping away there. With Jerry Easter, it seems like there's always new contenders that Michigan State has to go against in their recruitment every couple months. I think Baylor and Oregon are some new guys coming in that recruitment, but one thing that always remains is Michigan State being that other school that's going head to head against these other schools. So I think Michigan State likes where they sit there, but it doesn't seem like it's one where Jerry Easter is dying to go ahead and lock that down right now. So we'll see where all these things trend, but one thing is for sure. And there's so many guys I didn't bring up just because there's not any tangible kind of reporting for me to do over the last month.
Gotcha.
They're just doing their process, patiently going along, but there's so many guys I didn't bring up because, like I said, nothing to report there, but there's still so much of a net that has been spread here in this class in 2025 that they should be able to get several great players with kind of where things stand, like Trey McKinney, who I don't know if he ends up at Michigan State, but there's not really a singular school that I can say, oh, he likes that school way more than Michigan State right now. It's just, again, a lack of news, a lack of buzz, no actual positive chatter to report. It's just, we'll see where it happens. And it's still kind of relatively early. So that's it on the recruiting front, Matt.
That was a lot of information, a lot of names, not a lot of big men, not a lot of centers there. Is that of dire concern to the staff? Is that just something that they're asking themselves? Well, guys, I guess we could all just go to the portal for this one, or where do they stand with just big man recruiting right now? Because let's not kid ourselves, kind of an issue this year on the court. Yeah. You're going to shore that up anytime soon, or what's this story?
I think another part of the issue, Matt, and this has been the case for, I want to say like 2, maybe 3 years. And I've had conversations with Eric Bossy and a couple others in the college basketball recruiting world. The back to the basket, like big men with post skills, like they are very, very few and far between these days.
Gotcha.
It's the
Gotcha.
like, okay, everyone talks about like how Xavier Booker was probably rated too high, right? But the
Mhm.
fact of the matter is, all the people that were ranked behind him, it's not that he was kind of foolishly ranked ahead of him. It's that those guys were not very good either.
Okay.
And it's just such a lack of pure centers in the game right now from the high school ranks, and at least coming from the United States, that you still got to take them. Like, you're not everyone has a center on the roster. Like, you're gonna have somebody that
Mhm.
occupies that role. It's just you're probably going to want to take longer to evaluate those guys. Michigan State's philosophy probably is that, hey, let's see which of the centers come back this year. Let's see if we have to use the portal. If we do use the portal, is the guy that we get going to be maybe a guy that just finished his freshman year? Is that guy going to be the future for the next 3 years?
Yeah.
So once kind of April, May, and June, like kind of go ahead and progress, they will then know, okay, we are going to need a center in 2025. And at that point, you'll have a better sample size of summer circuit ball. And Michigan State's one of those programs that they can get somebody closer towards the end of the cycle in basketball. So we'll see. There were 3 names, I believe, that I had been hearing early on that they were after, but they
Okay.
didn't really end up liking any of them. So it's not like they're
Gotcha.
not trying. It's just everyone at the center position kind of, at least in the Midwest, maybe they'll go national again, but it's just, I don't know. It's slim pickings out there.
And that also translates to the transfer portal too, because I remember going on, I believe the website is
Mhm.
evanmia.com, and like he ranks all the
Yeah.
transfers. What by far the position with the least amount of guys that transferred was
Yeah.
center. Like it is very easy for us, for the fans to go out and say, hey, they need to get a center in the portal.
Mhm.
It's not always guarantee,
Right.
like, because Michigan State's not the only team that needs a center. That
Mhm.
is the lowest supply of the
Yeah.
bunch. So
Yeah.
again, like at the end of the day, like this is Michigan F and State, like
Mhm.
it's a program that has some stature in the college basketball world, but
Yes.
it's tough. That's
Yeah.
fascinating though with the high school recruiting, that just like a lack of back to the basket scores. Like, is that just the Steph Curryification of the game? Is that just the AAUification of the game? It's probably some
Yeah.
combination of
That's
both, but
the whole thing with like the Victor Wembanyama effect
yeah.
too of, oh, just because I'm 7 foot doesn't mean that I shouldn't handle the ball. And a lot of guys want to become like that. Even like, Kevin Durant, like he was
Yeah,
not
right.
ever a center that converted to a perimeter player. He just always was a perimeter player. So a little different than Victor Wembanyama, but it's nobody wants to just go ahead and be reliant on others in the AAU and high school game in terms of their scoring and just overall usage and ball handling dominance, that they just want to go ahead, stand on the perimeter and kind of do it themselves. And I think the other issue is, and I guess maybe it's not even really an issue, it's just even the NBA. Like, you look
Yeah,
around, how many
totally.
guys are just over there on the low block posting up? Like, the best centers in the NBA, obviously Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid.
Mhm.
Jokic is bringing the ball up on a good amount
Right.
of possessions. He's facilitating from the perimeter. Joel Embiid, like, yeah, he's more of a traditional center than probably most people in the NBA these days. He's at the top of the free throw line, in the middle of kind of the action. He catches it at the high post and kind of either looks to attract the double, pass it out, or maybe face up for a fadeaway shot. Nobody's just on the low block anymore. And the kids that are watching this, they're not trying to replicate something that doesn't even exist anymore these days.
Yeah.
So it's just the way the game's going. And I kind of misspoke when I said that every team has a center. Now everyone plays somebody in the middle of the paint. But you look
Yeah.
at a lot of rosters on CBS Sports and whatnot, and you scroll through all 13 guys. There's like guys, teams that don't have a C next to anyone's name. There's just a
Gotcha.
forward. It's like a guy that's 6'8" and he's playing in the 5th spot on the lineup. It's listed as a forward. Like, maybe there's really not such a thing. But like at the end of the day, like, if that is the case, like, I would have liked to have seen Michigan State maybe even this year just play Malik Hall at the 5 more often and go small. But if they're not going to do that, and sometimes they're going to play with 2 centers out there, then you got to find one somehow. And I wrote this in my article a couple of days ago, and I was breaking down the numbers of how all the big men are doing. Joey Brunk, he was getting that standing ovation every single post touch against Michigan State in that Ohio State game. Hunter Dickinson, he was just going off and jawing at the bench, right in Coach Izzo's direction and all the players, and they couldn't really say anything because they couldn't stop him. And those 2 things stick with me, and they'll probably stick with me for a long time. And I think that just can't continue. The center position of Michigan State has to be better than it has been in recent years. But as we've kind of just talked through,
Yeah.
it is easier said than done. So
Way
I don't
easier said
know.
than
It
done.
just has to get done, but I don't know how necessarily.
Let's get international. Let's get some
Yes.
Hungarian kid in here that looks like he's 35 years old. Yeah, or just like a rink mast, just
Mhm.
just thinking of the first international
Yeah.
big man that I
Just
could
track
possibly
just
think of.
track all the donor planes from West Lafayette
Yeah,
going over to Eastern Europe. Just tail Matt Painter over there and just offer some guys.
that makes me upset that they got another 7'3" guy coming in. Whatever, whatever. But no, I don't know. Because we always say that, hey, Houston reminds you of the MSU teams of
Yes.
old. And Houston is made up just like, the team that you said, a team with no true center. I think their tallest guy that they actually play is 6'8". Everyone else is like 6'3", 6'7". Like, I don't know. Maybe we are moving forward by going back, by just not having any centers. And this is how we do get back to Michigan State basketball. I think that's wishful thinking, quite frankly, but maybe there's something to that.
And it can work if you necessarily don't have a 7 foot prototypical guy, but your guy's like 6'8" and rebounds like he's 7 foot. Like,
Yeah, like Malik just
what?
did. Right.
Right, exactly. Like
Yeah.
Malik just did, or Charles Barkley used to do at 6'6"
Yeah.
100 years ago.
Right.
Or recently, I think he was listed as a center, but he was like 6'9" at best. John Harrer at Penn State. I bring him up
Oh,
all the
God.
time, kind of for no
Great
reason.
call. Yeah.
I was such a fan of his play style, and I know Coach Izzo was too, for a fact. And that's like, if you get someone like that, it doesn't matter if he's 7 foot, doesn't matter if he can't score back to the basket. Guys are going to get you 11 rebounds in a conference game. I don't care if he averages 2 points per game, but right now they're not getting the rebounds or well, other than Malik Hall, but not getting the rebounds or the points. Got to have one of the two.
Totally. Do you want to switch it up here? Talk about the other basketball team that plays here at Michigan
Yes,
State. One that needs a lot of love. One that's actually playing today, Friday, 3 p.m.-ish, because they got the double bye. Before, like, we just talk about just the game a little bit here and what this tournament can mean for them. Double bye. I'm going to say that again. They're the 4 seed. JT, before the season started, they were ranked 10th in the preseason poll. Like, they were picked to not finish in the upper half in the Big Ten, let alone with a double bye. Robin Freilich, when she was hired here, me and you talked about, hey, this is going to be good for the program. Yes. Eventually. How about just in year one? How about just hitting the ground running, not even taking those rebuilding years? Because not only is it the double bye, but you look at any women's bracketology right now, they're pretty much a consensus 7 seed right now. Wow. Not too shabby from Robin Freilich there. And just another A+ hire by Alan Haller.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I think when you look at kind of what Coach Freilich has done, and kind of reminds you of what Coach Hostler did with the women's soccer team as well.
Totally.
Coaches coming in from lower levels, bringing some of their players and immediately just establishing a winning culture, because they're coaches that have done it before, albeit at a lower level. But the fact that you have a culture and you have principles and core values that translate, period, no matter who you are, and in turn, no matter who you're coaching. And this is proof in the pudding right here that you get coaches that win, period. Doesn't matter if it's the MAC. Doesn't matter if it's Grand Valley State, like in Coach Hosler's case. You go with the coaches that know how to win, and hey, it's looking like it's panning out very well. And that's kind of been Alan Haller's blueprint of hiring coaches. It's just proven winners at maybe under-resourced places and giving them a better stance and a better platform to go ahead and do it here. And Jonathan Smith, obviously not from a MAC school or anything like that, but Oregon State's as under-resourced as it gets, and I think that also is from the same kind of cut of the cloth in terms of the hiring blueprint. So, man, it's a well that he keeps going back to, and it's a well that looks like he keeps paying off. So definitely congratulations to Coach Robin Freilich and the women's basketball team. And looks like the success is just beginning for that tenure, and also just for the season alone.
And hopefully it's revenge time against Nebraska. Nebraska was just one of 2 teams that actually beat Michigan State at Breslin Center this year. So should they win this one, it's not a guarantee, but look, Ohio State is a buzzsaw right now.
Oh, yeah.
Women's basketball, they play. I forgot who won the Illinois-Maryland game earlier. Sorry. I assume Ohio State's going to win this game by 20 points, so they would be playing in the semifinals. Michigan State lost both their games to Ohio State this year, like a lot of teams in the Big Ten did. But they did only lose by 5 on the road at Ohio State. Not to take moral victories here, but like that there's something to be said about that. That hey, it could be
Right.
double revenge time, and obviously the Ohio State game wouldn't just be revenge. That would be a statement
Yes.
right there. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's setting up pretty good. Again, like they are pretty much locks to make the NCAA tournament by
Right.
all accounts. So it'll be fun though. It'll be a fun game. Michigan State, second highest scoring team in the Big Ten. They're going up against
Right.
Nebraska, who has the third best defense in the Big Ten. So hey, if you got nothing going on 3 p.m. ish on Friday, tune in to Spartans versus Huskers. This is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. And Nebraska, don't remember the exact point total they won by, but I think they're up by 20 something, closer towards the end of the game against Purdue. So as you said, definitely not an easy game there. And Ohio State, I know there was that Ohio State Iowa game. Obviously the Caitlin Clark record-breaking performance, but you kind of look at what people that watched it very closely and didn't miss a minute of it were saying is Ohio State kind of got some unfavorable calls in that game.
You think?
Caitlin Clark. So
Yeah.
the way that I look at it is they're kind of the pinnacle of Big Ten basketball right now, along with Iowa. And that Iowa team, Matt, when Michigan State played them at Hawkeye Carver, not a big margin of defeat there with that last second buzzer beater. So it's
unfortunately
right
on
there.
A lot of highlight packages for Caitlin Clark. Yeah, whenever there's a Caitlin Clark commercial. Great. There's Michigan State on the wrong end of just what would have been an amazing win. You talk about hitting the ground running for Robin Freilich. To get that win in year one would have been insane.
Matt, you're going to be feeling the same sentiment when it's the NFL draft and the 5th or 4th overall pick is coming up and Marvin Harrison Jr. Oof, that highlight reel.
Don't do this. I'm trying to have a good day over here. In case anyone was going to lose sleep over this, and by the time you're listening to this game already may have happened. It's Maryland going up against Ohio State. They won the game against Illinois. Oh God.
So now this is a good segue to talk about how is Maryland basketball underwhelming significantly under Kevin Willett. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have to go into that. But I thought he was going to be a better coach. Thought it was going to go better for Maryland basketball when Kevin Willett took over.
I know this game happened a while ago, but like when Michigan State played at Maryland and they panned to the crowd or like the super zoomed out shots where you see the crowd, this used to be a once proud program. Where are the people? There are more people on this video call right now than were in that arena for that game. Like I remember back in 2019 when they were trying to win the Big Ten title and Cassius Winston splashing half-court shots in their eye. Like, and it was packed for every single game that year. And even if you go back to the mid-2000s, it was a hard atmosphere.
And I believe when Michigan State beat them earlier this season at the Xfinity Center, that was their first home loss in a very long time. So they didn't even have a tangible reason to kind of pull back their investment in attending those games. They were still winning at home. So you're right. That was very strange.
I think one person said like, oh, they're on winter break. Okay. That doesn't explain the other 80% of the stadium that has normal actual people there, not just students. Is it spring break for the whole DMV area? Like I don't think so unless I'm mistaken, but like a once proud program, sure. To be like hovering around 500 is one thing. Just the total apathy that quick into the Kevin Willard era, I did not see coming in 100 years for Maryland, unless there's some insane scandal that only the people in College Park know about that we're not hip to. I can't believe, like like Michigan State's wrestling team draws better than Maryland. I just cannot believe it just turned to this. The Terrapins, I can't.
I agree, and I mean we'll see what he does in future years, but Ed Cooley at Georgetown has been a massive failure.
Hate to see that.
Like, man, it's some of these, like Kevin Willard. I remember I watched Villanova games for years, and Seton Hall was such a pesky opponent for them. And Ed Cooley and Providence were too. And these two coaches went to more research programs. And again, it's early in both of the tenures, and it's very premature to write them off. But I thought those two hires would be much better than the way they've gone.
Yeah.
Shout out Shaheen Holloway at Seton Hall, though.
One time for Shaheen Holloway. That's right. Yeah. At least he's doing okay over there. No, I got to say, ever since the stunt he pulled, though, with Miles Powell saying that, we're actually going to euthanize him tonight. And the next thing you know, he's playing 37 minutes and dropping damn near 40 points. I don't hate to see Kevin Willard struggle. I know we're
Oh
going off
no,
way on a tangent here. I'm looking at our notes. I don't remember seeing Bash Maryland basketball here on our notes, but
it's in
I'm
white
glad we
font,
got it
Matt.
here because I had some things to say and some just observations to point out from that game that happened a month and a half ago. Like, it is weird that no one seems to care anymore that quickly.
You know,
I can't believe it.
speaking of playing against Maryland, the home game against Maryland, I was there
Mhm.
for that. The Izzone was chanting all game every time Julian Reese went to the foul line. They were chanting "Angels better," which is his sister. Now
Oh yeah, that's a good
that's
one.
not much of an insult because Angel
No,
Reese is one of the best basketball players in the country, so it's not
she's
really
good,
anything to be ashamed of. But just
right?
like the awareness and just general basketball IQ by the Izzone was
That's
great to
nice.
see that game for sure.
Ball knowers. The Izzone full of
Yes,
ball knowers. Another good year
yeah,
for the Izzone. I feel like
it
there was
was a
a
good year for
dip
the Izzone.
for a little bit that were like people were complaining about the Izzone, but like the last few years they've really ramped it back up. Izzone
Matt,
has been strong here.
the Izzone probably had its worst season the year that Vernon Carey and Duke came to the Breslin Center. And I thought, like, oh, they're going to give it to him. And they did not give it to him, Matt. In fact, when
We
he went to
got
the free
given to
throw
him.
line, there was not an overwhelming degree of boos like I thought. I thought that he would be terrorized all game. And I've told this story before, but I was in the room when Vernon Carey was at Michigan State for a visit when he said that he was going to commit to Michigan State in a few weeks. And then turned on ESPN and he's talking about the brotherhood or whatever. And after Coach K like allegedly cried in his living room saying, please commit here, otherwise I'm going to retire or whatever happened there. But and yeah, they let him off the hook. And that was the most disappointed I've ever been in the Zone. And I agree. This year I think they've been good. They were very good last night. They gave way more energy than probably the team had deserved up to a certain point there until they really started to turn around at the end. They were loud. They had the air ball chanting against Boo Booey through the timeout, which was very, very impressive. So
Relentless.
I agree. They have been back to kind of the OG days, it sounds like. But it was bad when I was there. It got worse.
I can't believe the Vernon Carey Duke game is going to ruin my night now because you talk about back to the basket score. He must have had 18 points just going over the left shoulder alone, man. That was a long evening and a short evening at the same time. We were so hyped to be at that game. We had seats where we were hanging onto the banners up in the rafters, and we were so stoked to be there. You know,
that was the Foster surfboard game, right?
It was the Foster surfboard game.
Yep. That happened.
Can you edit all this out too? We were doing so good keeping the vibes high, and now here we are getting upset about a game that happened 4 years ago.
I got there like 2 hours early for that game, and me and my buddies had a place to sit. And it's probably the best like home game during my
Draymond
MSU
jersey
years.
retirement. You know,
yes.
It was just going to be a beautiful night.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, it was 62-5 after the under 16 timeout. That was tough. Name a good moment at Breslin Center. Hey.
It was
yeah, let's get the vibes back on track here down this.
The best moments ranked. Michigan State beating Purdue on the buzzer beater for Miles Bridges from three.
That's nice.
Nice. I was up for that. I was up in the upper Izzone. It was my freshman year. So didn't have enough Izzone points to be down low at the time. And even recording that shot from the upper deck, my phone's mic couldn't pick up the volume once everyone started screaming. That's awesome. The next two after that, Cassius Winston against Michigan, when Juwan Howard ran halfway into the court to call that timeout, and nobody could even hear that he got a technical, and it was deafening when Cassius hit that three that didn't even count because nobody heard the whistle. And then the senior night, the last game Cassius ever played in a Michigan State jersey against Ohio State. I think those are my three favorite home memories at the Breslin.
The Cassius senior night is going away.
Yes,
one, of course. So that's way to wrap this thing up on high vibes. There we go. We were not going to let the Vernon Carey game.
The next thing I was going to ask you was worst moments at Spartan Stadium, so we could talk about the Illinois game where they blew a 20. Matt, is there anything else we'd like to discuss?
No, I want to leave. I'm done.
With that, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the SD4L show. Please comment for the algorithm. Like literally, just you can comment for the algorithm.
Give them an emoji, JT. For the 3 people still listening, what emoji should they comment to prove that they are the SD4Ls of the week?
Matt, we needed to workshop this before. Now I'm under pressure. Let me see what my most recent emojis are.
Let's see here. How about this? I got one. The lock emoji. As an ode to the defense played on Wednesday. The lock emoji. Yeah.
And a lock emoji as an ode to the fact that they're locked to make the tournament now.
Pretty much.
Yes. Let us do it. The lock emoji.
That, but yeah.
Nope. Like the lock emoji with my gavel. Oops.
Yep. Well, lock emoji to prove that you're sick enough to listen to all 50 minutes of this show. And you are the SD4Ler of the week. There's no actual prize, but we will be very grateful and appreciative. So there we go. How about that?
With that, we will talk to you next week. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Comment for the algorithm, subscribe, 5-star review on whatever your streaming platform of choice is. And appreciate everyone for tuning in.